In 24 BC, Rome demanded total submission. They sent their most lethal legions south. Rome had already conquered the entire known world. No nation had ever stopped their advance, until the day their legions marched into the burning African desert. But they were not marching against a weakened tribe or a scattered people. They were walking blindly and arrogantly into the most devastating military trap ever set. Waiting for them were the deadliest, most precise long-range warriors in recorded history. Men who fired arrows with terrifying force, shattering solid Roman iron shields completely, led by a fierce, one-eyed African queen who never once considered surrendering. What followed was a brilliantly orchestrated, absolutely devastating ambush Rome never saw coming. The invincible empire was dismantled, humiliated, and stripped of everything they had brought. Rome's soldiers were hunted down and slaughtered, scattered across the burning Sudanese sand. The survivors crawled back north, completely broken, forced to surrender their imperial pride. This is how Africa brought the mighty Roman Empire to its knees. For centuries, the Roman Empire was considered a completely unstoppable military machine, violently conquering lands from Britannia to Egypt. By the time you finish this, you will understand why this victory was the most decisive moment in African military history. The Kingdom of Kush, located in modern-day Sudan, was a sprawling, wealthy empire built on gold and iron. They were heavily armed, fiercely independent, and watched closely as Rome brutally dismantled their Egyptian neighbors. If you are enjoying this deep dive into Africa's untold history, consider subscribing to help uncover more forgotten empires. Because the Kushites knew that the Roman war machine would inevitably turn its greedy eyes southward. The Roman governor of Egypt, alias Gallus, underestimated the African kingdom. He pulled troops away from the border, assuming the Kushites were passive. But the Kushites were tactical masterminds who constantly monitored Roman military movements. Queen Amanirenas, the Candake of Kush, was a brilliant and utterly fearless military commander. She recognized that waiting for Rome to attack would be tactical suicide, so she launched a massive, preemptive strike against them. Leading an army of 30,000 fiercely loyal troops, she marched north to hit the Romans where they were most vulnerable. They stormed the cities of Sine, Elephantine, and Falah, completely overwhelming the surprised garrisons. But this wasn't a standard territorial raid. Queen Amanirenas specifically targeted the statues of Emperor Augustus. Her warriors violently tore down his bronze head and buried it beneath the steps of a Kushite temple. This was a calculated act of profound psychological warfare. Every time her people entered the temple, they would literally trample on the face of the most powerful man on earth, sending a terrifying message to Rome. Enraged by this unprecedented humiliation, the new Roman prefect, Gaius Petronius, assembled a heavily armored retaliation force of 10,000 elite legionaries. They marched south into the brutal, scorching Nubian desert, seeking absolute vengeance. Queen Amanirenas knew her kingdom was fighting for its very survival. She had given everything to her people, including the safety of her own son, fully understanding that a single mistake would mean total enslavement. The blistering desert heat was suffocating, the air thick with burning dust that choked the Roman lungs. The unforgiving environment was actively destroying the invaders, long before they even saw a single Kushite warrior. Petronius initially found success, pushing deep into Kushite territory and sacking the ancient city of Napata. He believed he had broken their spirit, assuming the African resistance would simply dissolve into the vast desert. What he didn't realize was that Amanirenas was simply trading space for time. She drew the heavy Roman infantry deeper into an impossible logistical nightmare, stretching their supply lines until they were dangerously exposed. The Roman armor, which made them invincible in Europe, became a deadly oven in the African sun. Exhaustion quickly set in, and the once disciplined legions began to realize they were trapped in hostile territory. And this is where the Kushite military doctrine completely changed the rules of engagement. They refused to fight in tight, predictable formations. Instead, they weaponized the dunes, utilizing their legendary archers to launch devastating ambushes. The Nubian archers were armed with massive longbows that required immense physical strength to draw. These weren't standard arrows. They were heavy, armor-piercing projectiles tipped with poison, designed to drop a man in agonizing seconds. The Roman scutum shields, built to deflect standard Celtic and Germanic weapons, were completely shredded by the Kushite artillery. The arrows possessed so much kinetic energy, they punched straight through iron, wood, and bone. Panic rippled through the Roman ranks as invisible snipers rained death from the high ground. The legionaries tried to form their famous testudo formation, but the relentless barrage of heavy arrows simply crushed their defenses. Amanirenas herself commanded from the front lines, fighting fiercely alongside her troops. Despite losing an eye in combat, her absolute refusal to retreat inspired her warriors to push the Romans to the brink of collapse. The Roman war machine had never faced an enemy so perfectly adapted to their environment. Every time Petronius tried to force a decisive, pitched battle, the Kushites melted back into the desert, leaving only casualties. Instead of a glorious conquest, the Romans found themselves fighting a brutal war of attrition. Their casualties mounted daily, and the legendary discipline of the legions began to completely unravel under the constant sniper fire. Petronius realized that conquering Kush was impossible. His battered army was forced to retreat northward, abandoning their imperial dreams of seizing the gold mines of Marae. But Queen Amanirenas wasn't finished with them yet. She quickly regrouped her forces, launching a massive counteroffensive that relentlessly pursued the fleeing Romans. The hunters had officially become the hunted, and the Kushites drove them back toward the heavily fortified border of Egypt. At the fortress of Primis, the two exhausted armies finally reached a violent, bloody stalemate. The Romans were heavily entrenched, but the Kushites surrounded them, cutting off any hope of a quick or easy victory. Realizing that this war would bankrupt Rome and drain its manpower, Petronius was forced into negotiations. Queen Amanirenas dispatched her diplomats directly to Emperor Augustus, carrying a bundle of golden arrows as a chilling warning. The message Queen Amanirenas delivered to the Roman emperor was brutally clear and completely uncompromising. She was offering them a final chance to avoid total destruction. She told Augustus that if he accepted peace, he could keep the golden arrows as a token of their mutual respect and diplomatic understanding. But if the emperor chose to continue the war, her legendary marksmen would personally shoot those very same golden arrows directly through his heart. Emperor Augustus was a notoriously ruthless conqueror who had crushed rebellions across Europe, but the staggering casualty reports from the African desert deeply terrified him. Despite his massive imperial ego, he wasn't a fool. He knew that sending another legion into the scorching sands of Nubia would only result in a bloodbath. In an unprecedented historical move, Augustus completely surrendered to her demands. He officially recognized Kushite sovereignty, canceled all taxation, and permanently withdrew his bruised army. The Treaty of Samos, signed in 20 BC, was a shocking humiliation for Rome. Augustus not only canceled all Kushite tribute, but he actually ordered his troops to evacuate the contested territories, surrendering to Amanirenas. The greatest empires weren't built by armies. They were built by those who knew exactly what their enemies believed was impossible. The Roman Empire never attempted to invade the Kingdom of Kush again. Historians later documented that this peace lasted for over 300 years. The sheer terror inflicted by the Nubian archers permanently established the southern border of the Roman Empire, protecting Africa from total imperial domination. The shattered bronze head of Emperor Augustus remained buried beneath the temple steps in Mariae for 2 millennia. It served as a permanent, silent testament to the queen, who refused to let her people fall. While Rome celebrated its conquests in Europe and Asia, the uncomfortable truth of their devastating African defeat was quietly buried. The invincible legions had been broken by brilliant tactics, superior archery, and an uncompromising queen. The legacy of Queen Amanirenas and her legendary archers proves that military technology is useless without the strategic genius to deploy it. They successfully defended their civilization and preserved their culture against impossible historical odds. But this wasn't the last time a powerful African kingdom would rise up to defy an invading empire. And this was only the beginning of a long history of fierce resistance across the vast continent. Records show that the tactical brilliance developed in the Nubian desert would echo through centuries of African warfare. The legendary marksmen set a standard of courage that would inspire future generations of incredible warriors. The Roman defeat in Kush remains one of the most stunning military upsets in ancient history. It fundamentally reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the ancient world, proving that true power lies in unity and defiance. The empire retreated, but the legends remain. We unearth hidden African histories every single week. Click the video on your screen right now to explore the next untold archive of the ancient world.